So earlier in the year, we were treated to Sonic Mania, and as soon as that game was released, it was met with almost entirely unanimous praise from both critics and fans. And when you really think about it, that's not any different from how people look at the classic games. But once we leave the territory of Sonic 3 and Knuckles and enter into Sonic Adventure, some notable division begins to arise when you look at people's opinions. You have one set of people who think the game has aged poorly or is just a complete mess, and then you have another set of people who still hold the game in high regard to this day, but there doesn't seem to be a general consensus one way or the other, and every game after Adventure would see this kind of division to some degree, with two notable exceptions I shouldn't even have to name. Though once Sonic Colors and Generations were released, gamers were once again in universal agreement that Sonic was once again brought to greatness, and then Lost World came out, and we had to start all over again. So here we are with the latest entry in the series, Sonic Forces, and unfortunately we've been given another game that further divides the fan base. But if you want my opinion on the overall fan reaction, I think it's a little ridiculous. You have one side that thinks Forces is a masterpiece and has no issues whatsoever. Then on the other side you have folks who think it's unredeemable trash, and I'm here to say that honestly, I think both sides are wrong. But let's stop talking about fan reaction and get into this review. Sonic Forces' story begins with Dr. Eggman having already conquered the world and taking out Sonic with his new soldier Infinite, who the Doctor infused with the Phantom Ruby from Mania. With Sonic seemingly dead, the resistance led by Knuckles continues to fight Eggman's forces, but to no avail, until they meet up with a new recruit who is the customizable avatar, and they soon find out that Sonic is still alive and send the rookie out to rescue him. Meanwhile, Tails is trying to fix up Omega when he's attacked by a copy of Chaos, but then Classic Sonic shows up to save the day, and you can tell the poor guy just wants to go back to Mania. Not long after, everyone reunites with Sonic, and then the focus is shifted to stopping Eggman like every other Sonic game. I do enjoy the idea of having a story where Eggman has already taken over the world. Kind of gives off a Sad AM vibe, which, if you weren't aware, is my favorite animated adaptation of Sonic. However, the story in Sonic Forces has several flaws. It might be hypocritical for me to criticize the story in this game when I haven't really done so with other Sonic games I've looked at, but in all honesty, I can usually enjoy Sonic plots for what they are, but Forces just has some glaring issues in this department. For starters, the game seems to make a big deal out of these Phantom Ruby clones of Sonic's past opponents, but you only end up fighting Metal and Zavok. Zavok. Granted, Shadow does have his own short campaign, and you can play as him in Sonic stages, but Chaos literally only shows up in one cutscene and is taken care of in said cutscene. I guess they had to be scrapped due to time constraints, but it's still rather disappointing nonetheless. Also, what in the world happened to Tails? In the adventure games, there was a subplot of Tails having to become more independent and be able to battle against Eggman without Sonic being around, but here all of the development seems to have been thrown out of the window, as Tails cowers at the mere sight of Chaos. But not just any Chaos, Chaos Zero! Like, dude, you easily defeated Chaos 4 in Adventure 1! Come on, Tails!
Sonic, help me!
Also, I hate that Classic Sonic is here. He just feels completely shoehorned in. And now, apparently, he's not the Sonic from the past, but a Sonic from an alternate dimension. And it seems that this was something they really wanted you to know.
You're that Sonic from another dimension, aren't you?
You've got a lot of nerve for a pint-sized Sonic from another dimension.
There are more issues with the story, but I think I've said enough to make the point clear that the story in Forces is heavily flawed. Mind you, not as bad as, say, Sonic 06, but that should go without saying. However, the story isn't completely irredeemable. There is some legitimately endearing stuff about friendship, and the story overall would have been at least decent if there was more development in certain aspects. However, when it comes to Sonic games, as I've said before, story should be the last thing that makes or breaks the game. As most people are here for the presentation and gameplay, a good story would just be the icing on the polarizing cake that is a 3D Sonic game. Sonic Forces is the first game to utilize the Hedgehog Engine 2, which which for those of you who aren't aware is not a gameplay engine, it's a graphics engine, and it actually looks pretty nice here. I think the best part about the game visually speaking is the lighting, especially in the cutscenes. This is probably the most cinematic looking lighting in any Sonic game to date. As for the animation in the cutscenes, it's a bit of a step down from previous games, but that's not surprising considering this was a budget release. This is the first 3D Sonic game I've ever played that didn't actually have any pre-rendered cutscenes at all. Not even an opening cutscene, though that makes sense due to the fact that there's a customizable character in the mix. But it would have been nice to have an opening cutscene akin to what was seen in the game's trailers. Animation downgrade aside, Forces is still a very pretty game, and it runs in a smooth 60 FPS on all platforms except Switch, but the Switch version apparently has 60 FPS controls.
Nani?
As is to be expected, the soundtrack is superb. Okay, well, the classic Sonic stages are an exception. But honestly, I do like some of the compositions for those stages, but that filter is just ear-grating. Whoever thought that adding a shrill filter to the classic tracks was a good idea needs to be told politely but firmly.
No.
Now, pushing those few tracks to the side, the game opts to use a lot more vocal themes during gameplay, which is honestly not something I'm opposed to. Sure, they're borderline cheesy songs, but they're fun, and the main theme Fist Bump, along with the ending theme Light of Hope, have quickly become some of my favorite tracks in the whole series. So the new Sonic game has good presentation values all around. Also, the sky is blue and the grass is green. So with that out of the way, let's dive straight into the gameplay. There are 4 distinct gameplay styles that Sonic Forces is split into: Modern Sonic, Avatar, Classic Sonic, and Tag Team stages. Modern Sonic stages are similar to Unleashed, Generations, and Colors in that you boost and platform your way to the end of the stages using his familiar moveset sans the drift. While he plays similarly to previous games, it definitely doesn't feel the same as Sonic retains his more precise movement from Lost World, which was a game that wasn't designed around the boost mechanic. So if you're more used to the handling of Colors or Generations, you might find yourself running off of platforms, but once you get used to it, it isn't bad at all, just different. The Avatar is easily the most interesting gameplay style. The stages play similarly to Modern Sonic, but you don't have a boost. What you do have are Wispins, different firearms that can perform different attacks based on which one you choose, and can react to the wisp that matches your Wispin for different special attacks and maneuvers. I really like the concept of the Wispins and feel it adds a lot of variety to a character that otherwise is just a Sonic clone, and I feel it's the best implementation of the wisp since Colors. Classic Sonic is easily the worst part of Forces. Kind of ironic considering we just got a game that was pretty much Classic Sonic perfection. Classic Sonic here honestly controls about the same, if not a little better than he did in Generations, but there are some glaring issues with the physics that even the developers of Sonic 4 would laugh about. In Tag Team stages, your Avatar and Sonic link together to take advantage of their unique abilities. In my eyes, these are the most fun stages in the game. You get the fast-paced exhilaration of Sonic mixed with your Wispin abilities to create what I feel is the peak of Force's overall quality. The only negative thing I can say about the Tag Team stages are the moments where the game stops to prompt you to mash the square button to do a double boost, after which the game will put itself on autopilot for a little bit. I can't be too hard on it though, as Fist Bump will play in the background during these moments, and I just enjoy that song way too much. Though one issue that plagues the majority of the game is, as I was saying, yeah, a majority of the game's stages are just way too short, many of them feeling like they've ended before they've even began. Between this issue and the lack of development in the story makes it really obvious that there was a lot of cut content here. That's not to say that there isn't anything substantial here. As I've said, the Tag Team stages provided the most fun for me, but the Modern and Avatar stages on their own were still enjoyable for how short they lasted. There were several points in this game where I was getting the same level of enjoyment I got when I first played Sonic Colors. Hell, even seeing Death Egg Zone return from Sonic 3 and K made me just a little giddy. Granted, Mania would have done it better, but it's still cool to see this zone regardless. Aside from that though, Classic Sonic was still but he doesn't have a lot of stages in the first place, so it's hard to be too upset about it. So when it comes down to basic questions, is Sonic Forces the complete garbage that half of the fanbase wants you to believe? Of course not, but is it the masterpiece that the Sonic Forces Defense Squad would have you think it is? Again, not at all. Sonic Forces is like that one kid in class who's really smart but waits until the last minute and does just enough to get by with a C or a high D. The kid is intelligent and has at least done well enough to check everything off on a list, but everyone knows that the kid is capable of doing vastly superior work and are a bit frustrated that the kid won't try a bit harder. That basically sums up how I feel about Sonic Forces. It's a perfectly fine game, but I would like to believe that the developers will try a bit harder next time and give us a new game that's on par with Generations. I can't really say that I'm disappointed with Forces, but that might just be because I also wasn't disappointed by Lost World, and we just recently got a fantastic game in the form of Sonic Mania, so it's hard for me to have bitter feelings toward a game that's just decent and harmless. If you haven't played it yet and have been on the fence, I do honestly recommend it at the $40 price tag, but at this rate the game will soon be hitting bargain bins, so you shouldn't have to wait so long to get a copy at a discounted price. Take what you will out of this game, but as far as I'm concerned, I'll always be a big fan of this series, and will always give the new games a fair shake whether they're good or bad, and I most certainly will look forward to seeing what's in store for the future. Anyways folks, this has been FumeiCom, and I thank you so much for watching this review. And before I leave, I just want to say that I now have a Discord server, so if you want to join it and chat with me and some other cool people, feel free to. I'll leave a link to it down in the description below. So until next time, I'll see you guys at the same time, same place, different game.